So I thought I'd talk about the songs that I've been posting and how I got them recorded and how I mixed them. I've done that all in my basement studio, which is where I am right now, and it's not a state-of-the-art operation, so it's kind of fun to talk about some of the workarounds that I've done to get sounds that I like and stuff like that. So before I do that, I have an abundance of incense that my sister gave me for Christmas that I'm working through, so I'm going to burn a different one of these for each song that I do. So this is lavender. Let's see if this one's any good. Okay, this one is called You'll Be Fine. I posted this back in February. The project file is If You're Fine up here because that was the original name of it. I recorded this back in 2018, and it was part of a bigger concept album that I wouldn't consider it my best work anymore, so I decided to move on and re-record it. It's kind of taken on new life since then. So first I'll just talk about how it was recorded. I've got 5 drum mics here. So I've got just a cheap set of CAD drum mics I got at Music Around for like $100, and I'm still using the kick and the snare mic from that set. The kick mic is about 2 inches off the front head of the kick drum. The snare mic is just right on top, clipped on, and then the 2 overheads I'm using XY stereo setup with 2 M-Audio Pulsar condensers, and then the room is it's right here, MXL 2003. I got this for like $20 at Doo-Wop because it was dented and they couldn't sell it, or they couldn't rent it. So, like I said, it's not the state-of-the-art equipment, but I'm able to get a good sound with it, and a lot of it I've gotten really cheap because it's used or dented or scratched or whatever, which is always fun. I love hunting down those deals. So that is the drum mic setup. Okay, so this is the dry signal that came in on the drum mics. The kick drum, what I do to this, just distortion. It's just straight up, it clips it. Kick drum dry, and with that, just a gain plug-in, and then compress it down to kind of fit with the rest of the drum sound. The snare drum is pretty much the same deal, because I'm using that same gain plug-in, and then I'll add reverb, and I like the gated reverb sound on snare drums. So, and the gate's not actually doing that much work here. It's really more in the verse. I actually did this mix back in October, I think. The file name says September 25th, so that's when I would have started recording. I think that it was mixed sometime in October or November. I've got these overheads, and both of these are completely flat on the channel on their own tracks. I've got this one left panned and this one right panned for that XY thing because that's how they came in. And then they're both going through a group bus called OH that I have equalized, and then I have this built-in tube compressor, the ratio set to high, the drive's all the way up just to get some gain, and then all of that, kick, snare, and then both the overheads are going through an additional group called just drums, and that is just a dynamic equalizer here, TDR Nova, and this is one of the most powerful pieces of freeware I have ever used. If you don't know about it, go get it. Then all of those, like that, sound like this. A little bit crisper, a little bit cleaner, and then just to kind of put it into a room, I've got this effects channel here, which is also the freeware thing from, who makes this one? Oh, I guess Valhalla. The supermassive reverb is just incredible. It gets crazy if you don't know it. Again, go get it. It's fun to mess with. Cool. So that in the room. And it just has a little bit more of a tail when you cut it off because it's got an ambient space to it now. This 5th mic that I've got The large diaphragm condenser that's set farther back in the room is just going through a channel strip with some gain, quite a bit of gain, equalization, and then through this compressor that's built in. And this came from Safari pedals. This was like, I don't know, they ran some kind of sale and it was like $4. And this thing's pretty cool, but I wouldn't say it's like the best thing at what it does, but when I was mixing this, I had just gotten it. I kind of wanted to mess with it. So I like to crunch up the room mic to get a little bit more of a live sound, just like kind of blown out sound. So I think, honestly, if I were doing this now, I probably would even push that farther, but the effect here is just a little bit more energy. So that's the drums. The bass, there's nothing really special about the bass. Again, I'm using this camel strip from Safari pedals because when I was mixing this, it was something I had just gotten and it was kind of exciting to mess with. And it works okay for the bass because I don't really need to do that much of the bass. It's nice to have everything in one place. You know, it's just the equalizer, the gain, and the compressor. I don't use the gate, and I wouldn't put reverb on the bass really. Just kind of oversaturating the bass is the goal, to get it to fill out the sound real estate. But other than that, this is just directly through the Tascam US 2000, which is the interface I've used for 14 years now. Thing is a workhorse. And I gotta say, as a bassist, as someone whose primary instrument is a bass, one of my least favorite things in the world is DI bass sounds. They are so dinky sounding to me. On its own, I hate how this sounds, but in the mix it sits really nicely. So in addition to that, I've just got this equalizer that I set up. Actually, did I set this one? This is the one I set up that has a little bit more body down here at 60 to 80. So that's the bass. And then when you throw that in with the drums, cool. And then the rhythm guitars are not doing too much. It's really just strumming chords, but I like that big wide rhythm guitar sound. So first of all, I've got this is just a built-in EQ preset. I didn't make this one. It's just a high pass, low pass kind of thing with a little bump here for presence. And these are mixed exactly the same. These are actually exactly the same track. So it came in dry. I don't like to use too many effects from the pedal board when I record because I don't like to bake in too much into the recording because then it's harder to edit. So this is just the Telecaster through the AC-15 on, I think, probably the neck pickup. So that's the one I use the most. And then to make that more interesting, I panned that one left. You may have already heard because I forgot to recenter it. And then when I doubled it, I panned that one right. You can see this is 0, that's the delay on the grid, and then this is set back 8 milliseconds. So these are coming in one after another to kind of stagger that entrance to get it kind of like chorusy. And then to just drive that home, I've got this tape modulation on the left side, just doing this really faint warble here. Then on this one, I've got another one of those Safari pedals plugins that I got. And this one, I would actually swear by this one, but it's kind of an everything multi-effect. It's got the chorus, it's got echo, it's got reverb. All of these are pretty low in the mix, 21%, 8%, 11%, but I've got the blend up pretty high. So you get a lot of that tail, it's just not a lot of effect. So what ends up happening is you have the chorusy sound combined with all that reverb on one side. So the two different effects just makes it sound much more of a stereo image because you're not just hearing the same thing twice. When I was younger, I used to do the copy and pan thing, but I didn't know that trick to like mix them separately or offset them at all. So it was literally just doubling the sound, the amount of sound, and it was just clipping. Like everything was just louder. It's just the same sound but louder. That goes in with the bass, the drums to sound like this. Cool. And the organ came in like the bass just directly into the Tascam. That sounded like this. And I'm using the Studio Logic Numa 2X to model all the organ sounds. It's got drawbars on it. It feels very real to play. And there is a little bit like digital clipping where input was just set too loud. And that doesn't bother me really because I actually run this through an amp simulator anyway to get more fuzz. OO stands for organ overdrive. This is a preset I made. It rolls off all the treble, adds a lot of presence. So it sounds like this. So it's just a little bit more full and a little bit more even across the spectrum without being really reedy, you know, like you get the like high end of an organ has that like really reedy sound that speaks sometimes too clearly. The organ also, you know, you want that stereo sound, like the Leslie rotating kind of sound. To get that stereo effect, I did kind of a similar trick to with the guitars, but this time I doubled it twice. So I've got 3 organ tracks. One is in the center. Center is a relative term here actually because I want it to sit in the middle towards the left. So it's in the center of the left side. And then to get that stereo image, I have the left one panned all the way to the left and the right one in the center so that it kind of just sits right here. The left one I have running through just a filter and the right one through the same filter, one at 60, one at minus 60, and the effect is the left one is all low end, so it sounds like just sitting at the left side of an organ. And then the right side is just the right side of the organ, so you get all the high end. And then it sounds like this. And then all 3 of those are actually running through another group here where I've got this, the dynamic equalizer, the whole rhythm section now. Then we move on to the melody, which sits in the synthesizers. So both of these are from the Sky Keys pack that I picked up for like 13 bucks one time. And if that's ever on sale, I recommend that too. I really didn't start messing with MIDI until like 2023 or 24. You know, it's not hard to figure out. It's just kind of a new sound for me. So I've got this going through Fluxlight, the tape modulator. This one is just dry. It just doesn't need that much. This is the rhythm track. And then I've got the mono synth doing the lead. All the vocal tracks. So the first one has this little bump at, 3,500 or something, and then these 2 are just flat. So the first vocal, the lead vocal, is going through the V67, which is an MXL vocal condenser mic that I also got from Doo-Wop for really cheap, like 30 bucks or something, again because it was dented, but perfectly functional. And then I'm putting that through first this same Safari Pedals, the echo chorus, and I've got the blend lower, but I've got the intensity up a lot higher on all these. So the reverb is way up, the echo is pretty present, and then the chorus is pretty high too, but all that blend is like way down. I know that I don't need to watch the news. I've seen every... So what that does is just kind of give it more body, more presence without overshadowing the main track, and it kind of blends into the background once you have it with everything else. And then on top of that, I like to do the reverb before the compressor because one of my favorite records is The Final Cut by Pink Floyd, and around that time Roger Waters' voice was mixed so prominently with the delay that just that sound has stuck with me for however long it's been since I heard that record, maybe 20 years. So I always put the reverb first so that the compressor is also doing work to that reverb and not the other way around. And this is just a basic vintage compressor from Steinberg. This is just built into Cubase, and I'm actually even using a preset that they gave me for this with a decently high ratio. I know that I don't need to watch the news. And then all that's going through this Waves mono limiter just to kind of take some edges off. I know that I don't need to watch the news. And that's the lead vocal. The other two vocals are really comparatively very easy because they are going through this vocal group, and it's just this compressor. I'm using a preset here because it doesn't really need to be that present, and then I'm sending it through that reverb down here. Oh, there's my vocal equalizer. Yeah, okay, so right here I cut out a lot of that 35-ish, 100, just so that it wouldn't compete. That's it. So all the vocals sound like this. I don't need to worry. I don't get vaccinations. I don't need to worry. I don't get vaccinations. So that is You'll Be Fine. Now I can talk about the actual song and how I arranged it. In the drums, I've got this really busy part that comes in at the chorus. It's the first part you hear, so I wanted that to be kind of bombastic, but since it comes in on the chorus, I didn't want it to be intrusive, you know, like I wanted it to be busy and full sounding, but not like a bunch of fills that are going to distract from the melody that eventually comes in later. It's all just straight 16ths, and then I hit that and a 4. Everything lines up really neatly on the grid, so you hear all that driving the song, but then not in the way of anything. When I was coming up with that, I was inspired by some Dr. Dog songs, especially on Shame Shame, like Unbearable Why, the opening fill and some of the fills in that just kind of go up and down the kit, and kind of following in that like jangle rock, Baroque pop kind of sound. This progression is just C, F, A, D minor, so 5-1, and then in the minor key 5-1 basically. So this is just a very simple walk up that kind of emphasizes that cadence. I'd stick to that pretty much the whole time. I wanted the rhythm section kind of out of the way of the melody because the melody is so busy. All these are just hitting on that 1 and then and a 4. The organ does a little bit of the tremolo in between, but that's it. And I don't even really accent the and a 4 because all that accent is coming from this snare hit. Just the organ and the guitar are really obfuscating that. You know, without the drums, you don't really feel 1 so much because I'm really trying not to hammer in that and a 4. I picked this synth sound, and it sits really low in the mix, but it gets a little bit more present in the verse. So I'll jump over the verse. Need to watch the news. I've seen that. Just, I don't know what you call it. Is that a sawtooth synth? I don't really even know. I don't know that much about synthesizers. Whatever sound that is, hitting on the 2 and the 4 reminds me so much of like a Killers song. The synth on Bones, I think it is. I love that sound. And then also, there's a T.W. Walsh record, Songs of Pain and Leisure, and there's a song called, it's the second to last track on the record. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the same deal. It has that kind of thing, and it even has this kind of chunky rhythm guitar that I really like. The last thing I guess to talk about is this synth line that I came up with. So the original line is much simpler. Guitar track that's been muted the whole time is because I decided not to make this a guitar song. Here is the original guitar line. I like the monosynth sound. It reminds me of like Pedro the Lion's Achilles Heel, which is another like perfect record in my mind. When I was arranging this, I was listening to a lot of Grandaddy and their record Someday, is another one that has a lot of synth sounds like that on it. And I figured, why waste a monosynth on a long tone like this? I've got a monosynth with portamento, and I do something with it, so I made that an arpeggio on every instance of that, and I feel like it just comes through a lot better. The lavender incense is just about burned out, so that's good timing. I would say the lavender's pretty good. Floral scents on incense are kind of hit or miss, but I would say the lavender is a hit. Anyway, the end.